the Target UPSC Prelims 2024 series, and this is the first episode for the subject Environment and Geography. And in today's episode, we will be covering the topics of environment summits. As we have started with this series of Target UPSC Prelims 2024, and many subjects will be covered under this. So regularly you will be getting the Target UPSC Prelims 2024 episodes of current affairs at 1 p.m. and MCQ series at 9 p.m. So keep up your preparation, as we will try to serve you as better as we can, and whatever topics we will be covering here, and we have covered it in our videos also. So the links you will be getting in the description box. So go and check out those videos also. And let's begin with the first episode of Environment Geography, Environment Summit. So first we have the River Cities Alliance. As the name itself is telling that it is related to rivers. So the organizer for this alliance is the National Mission for Clean Ganga in collaboration with the National Institute of Urban Affairs. Because many a times we see that in the summit it has been asked that who has organized the summit. And the objective of the River Cities Alliance is to provide a platform to discuss and learn best practices for management of urban rivers. Now here is an important word, which is urban rivers. So be very clear, be it rural rivers, urban rivers, or the term only rivers, because these three terms are different from each other. So it is with regard to the management of urban rivers, that how the river will be managed. Now about the River Cities Alliance. So it is a joint initiative of the Ministry of Jal Shakti and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Be very clear with regard to the ministry who is responsible for it, because this has also been asked, and you can say that one of the favorite topics of UPSC. Then the objective is connecting river cities and sustainable river centricity focus on development. Sustainable as because it needs to be better built, it needs to be better served, and the river needs to be clean. Then the alliance is based on three broad themes, and that is networking, capacity building, and technical assistance. Technical assistance becomes important so that the connectivity with other genres and the connectivity with other departments will also be better. Networking, it should be connected with other people, it should be connected with other departments, so that the information can be given easily. And capacity building, many things should be involved with it, as development should be eccentric, and development should also be taking with it other things also. And the alliance, which started with 30 member cities in November 2021, has expanded to 110 river cities across India and one international member city in Denmark. So now around 110 river cities are involved in it, and it is not only restricted to India, it has become international. So be very clear with this statement that it is restricted only to India and with other cities also. It is noteworthy that the River Cities Alliance has now been expanded to the Global River Cities Alliance. So it is not only in India, it is global. Now the Global River Cities Alliance was launched in the year 2018 in Dubai under the leadership of National Mission for Clean Ganga under the Ministry of Jal Shakti, Government of India. So the Global River Cities Alliance, year is 2018, place is Dubai, leadership is India. And in whichever project India is being the leader and playing the leadership role, be very clear with it, because that can also be asked. Now the alliance comprises 275 plus global river cities from 11 countries. So not only restricted to India, it is global in nature. This marks an important step in global effort towards river conservation and sustainable water management, so that the life of the river also increases and the water retention and the water capacity of the river also remains good. At the same time, it is being considered an important step in global efforts against climate change, as climate change is the topic of the hour and the need of the hour. So Sustainable river is an important topic, and sustainable river is an important discussion to be done at the moment. Then comes the Convention on Migratory Species. So the Convention on Migratory Species, why is it in news? Because the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, in collaboration with the United Nations Environment Program, that is UNEP, has organized a meeting of the parties to the CMS. And CMS is Convention on Migratory Species, popularly known as CMS. So Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in collaboration with UNEP. The other partner with which the ministry is collaborating needs to be remembered. It has focused on conservation efforts of migratory birds. Migratory bird means that the birds who travel from one place to another place, they migrate, and their habitats in the Asian flyway. 11 countries including Armenia, Bangladesh, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Kuwait participated in the meeting. Then at the meeting, delegates agreed on a draft roadmap to put in place an institutional framework and action plan on the Asian flyway. So the Asian flyway, it means that within Asia, the way which the migratory species or the migratory bird follows. So that flyway, on that institutional framework can be prepared for the migratory birds. And also for the better management of the migratory birds. Then about it, it is an intergovernmental treaty under the UNEP, also known as the Bonn Convention. So CMS, other name or popular name is the Bonn Convention, and Bonn is a city in Germany. It was signed in the year 1979 and came into force in 1983. The number of parties are 133. And India is also a party to CMS since 1983. This is an important point, that what is the status of India with regard to it. So India is a signatory, India is a party to the CMS, and it has been a lot of time, that is in the year 1983. The objective is to conserve it. The main objective is conservation. The main objective is to conserve terrestrial, marine and avian migratory species throughout their range. So the main aim is conservation of the migratory species so that they do not become or they do not decrease in their numbers. It lays the legal foundation for conducting conservation measures at the global level. So the legal foundation which was lacking till now, with the institutional framework coming into place, the legal backing will be given, and the conservation status and the conservation or the mitigation measures will be better served. Then two appendices under the CMS are Appendix 1 and Appendix 2. So the Appendix 1 lists the threatened migratory species, and the Appendix 2 lists the migratory species require international cooperation. So threatened migratory species, it means it needs attention and they are decreasing in number, and the second one is international cooperation is required for their conservation. Now India and CMS, it means India's relation with CMS. So India has signed non-legally binding MOU with CMS. Non-legally binding MOU means that it is the legal foundation is not there, that if there is any kind of recommendation, so it is up to India whether it follows or it does not follow. With CMS on the conservation and management of Siberian cranes, sea turtles, dugongs and raptors. And India contributes about 8% of the known global biodiversity with 2.4% of the world's land area. So India covers 2.4% of the world's land area. India also provides temporary shelter to many migratory species. As we all know that many areas, be it of northeast or the, you can say that the western ghats or the eastern ghats, so these are famous places where the migratory birds come, they rest and they sit and they spend some time and then they go forward in their own directions. Then comes the Petersburg Climate Dialogue 2023. Germany and the UAE. So Germany and UAE, parties to the UNFCCC, that is the United Nations Framework on Convention on Climate Change, they held the Petersburg Dialogue on Climate Change in Berlin, Germany. So Germany plus UAE, and it took place in Germany. Now about the Petersburg Dialogue, it is an annual, it means once a year. It is an annual high-level political and international forum held previously. It is initiated by former German Chancellor Angela Merkel in the year 2010. So the Petersburg Dialogue initiated in the year 2010 and it takes place once a year. The objective is to prepare for successful negotiations in the climate change conferences on the parties. So it is basically related to the climate change. Its goal is to strengthen multilateral climate negotiations and trust between states. So whichever states or whichever countries are taking part in it, they should be in cooperation with each other, and the main agenda is to fight the climate change. This dialogue focuses on climate adaptation, climate finance, and dealing with loss and damages. Climate finance, because whatever loss is taking place, a mechanism needs to be there that how it will be financed. Then the loss and damage, that whatever loss has taken place or whatever damage has taken place because of the climate change and the changing nature of the climate change or the harsh repercussions of the climate change, a mechanism should be prepared so that it can be managed also. The loss can be managed also, and whatever adaptations can be taken with regard to it or to prevent it. Now, what are the major points? So, the UN Secretary General stressed the need to break our fossil fuel habit and decarbonize in every sector. Decarbonization, it means that the use of carbon or the emission of carbon should be less, and the use of fossil fuel, that majority of the globe as of now are using fossil fuel, and the developed countries are specifically very much dependent on the fossil fuel. So the usage of the fossil fuel should be decreased. If we take example of India, then India is very much dependent on the import of the fossil fuel. To achieve the 1.5 degree Celsius global warming target. Now 1.5 degree Celsius global warming target is becoming very difficult to achieve. So it has been increased to 1.5 to 2 degree Celsius with regard to pre-industrial levels. So if we are able to stop at 1.5 degrees Celsius, it will be considered very good, but between 1.5 to 2 it should be stopped, and above 2 means that the situation is grim. Then immediately reduce greenhouse gases emissions and also reduce fossil fuels in a phased manner, because the world as of now, and specifically the developed nations, are so much dependent on the fossil fuel that it cannot be phased out immediately. So a mechanism and a processed plan needs to be prepared so that the phasing out of the fossil fuel can be done. India has taken many initiatives for climate change and green energy, which include, so let's talk about the initiatives which India has taken with regard to the phasing out of the climate change and with regard to the green energy. So first of all, being the National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change, as the word itself is telling that it is a fund which has been prepared for the process of adaptation. It was established in the year 2015 to meet the cost of climate change adaptation for India's states and union territories particularly vulnerable to the adverse impacts of the climate change. And the states which are very much at risk will be from India's respect, will be you can say the Lakshadweep or the Andaman and Nicobars or the coastal states of India. Now the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, also known as CBAM. So the European Union has announced that it will introduce the CBAM. So CBAM is related to the European Union, and European Union is a union of around 27 countries. So what will it do? It will impose a carbon tax on imports of goods made using non-green or environmentally unsustainable technologies, which will be introduced from October 2023. So a tax will be put and a tax will be raised on the items which has been made through the processes which is harming the environment. So through the processes which are non-green in nature. CBAM on select imports into EU from January 1, 2026. So 2026, and the tax which will be imposed will be in the range of 20 to 35%. So this is a high range of tax, you can say. So the date is January 1, 2026. Now about the carbon border adjustment mechanism, always remember the country with which it is associated, that is the European Union. So CBAM is a component of the Fit for 55 in 2030 package, and this package talks about that the target year is 2030 and we need to reduce the greenhouse gases by 55%. 55% reduction of greenhouse gases by the year 2030. So the carbon dioxide, water vapor, carbon monoxide, methane, these needs to be reduced. So then the objective is to reduce carbon emissions by ensuring that imported goods are subject to the same carbon cost as products produced within the European Union. So if the imported goods which will be imported in the European Union, they will be made with regard to the processes which are harmful for the environment, then they will be eligible for the tax. Then United Nations Conference on Forest. So this is a conference on forest. It was held in New York in May 2023. Delegates from around the world came together to discuss the relationship between energy and the sustainable development goals set up by the United Nations. So the relationship between the SDG goals, which are considered to be a guiding factor for the world, that the world needs to work towards achieving certain goals which are good for the human welfare and also for the societal welfare. So between energy and the SDGs. Now key points of the United Nations Conference on Forest are: experts have underlined the importance of practicing sustainable forest management in tropical regions so that the decreasing nature or the decreasing area of the forest can be preserved. Then since 2013, demand for sustainable availability of tropical timber has increased due to increased use of bioenergy, increasing pressure on forest. So because of the increasing demand of timber, the demand or the burden on forest has increased, which needed to be kept in check, because if that will not be kept in check, then in the coming time this might cause a problem, and in a longer period of time this will cause a problem, and this will be very difficult on the part of forest to deliver. Then about the United Nations Forum on Forest. So it is an intergovernmental policy forum established in the year 2000. So this is not new, it is an old practice. It promotes the management, conservation and sustainable development of all types of forest management, because if the proper management will be done, then forest will be kept with a high degree of conservation and sustainable, so that it can be passed on to the future generation. It strengthens long-term political commitment, was established by the United Nations Economic and Social Council, and the forum has universal membership. Universal membership means that almost all the countries are following it and are part of it, and is composed of all member states of the United Nations. So all member states of the United Nations, you can itself think that the member nations are more than 190 in number, and it is a universal membership. Then next is PBR and biodiversity management in India. PBR stands for People's Biodiversity Register. So People's Biodiversity Register and biodiversity management in India. So the national campaign to update and verify the People's Biodiversity Register was launched in Goa. So the state in which it is launched is Goa, an important milestone in the documentation and conservation of India's rich biodiversity. So here is also the important word is with regard to the conservation of India's rich biodiversity. See, India has a rich biodiversity with regard to the biodiversity hotspots that it has, be it Eastern Ghats, Western Ghats, or you can say the Indo-Burma region or the Northeast. So India has a rich biodiversity, and conserving that rich biodiversity is important. It was organized by the Union Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So ministry, be very very careful with regard to the ministry. Till now 2,67,608 PBRs have been prepared in the country. So more than 2,50,000 PBRs have been prepared. That is the People's Biodiversity Register. Now about the People's Biodiversity Register. So it serves as a comprehensive record of various aspects of biodiversity. So it is a record where the different aspects with regard to India's biodiversity is mentioned. Then this includes conservation of habitats, soil conservation, folk varieties and agricultural subspecies, domestic animal breeds and microorganisms. See, soil conservation, so the information of soil is there. Folk variety, it means the varieties which are particular to some places are also mentioned. Then agricultural subspecies, domestic animal breeds and microorganisms. It means that it works as a register, it works as a storehouse where information is stored. Then biodiversity management committees are formed under the Biodiversity Act of 2002 to promote the conservation, sustainable use and documentation of the biodiversity. So the main aim is conservation. The main aim is protection of the biodiversity. Local bodies in states and union territories constitutes BMC. So this is an important point, that the states and the union territories, local bodies are also have a role to play in this. Then comes about its importance. Then it helps in preserving biodiversity, which is an important key to maintaining balance in nature. So if to maintain the ecosystem or the biome or the nature or the biodiversity to work well and to work in a balance, then a balance of every single aspect needs to be at check. So this works as preservation. So this works as the preservation of biodiversity, and it supports the implementation of the provisions of the Biodiversity Act of 2002, and the objective is to regulate access to biological resources and ensure fair and equitable sharing of benefits. So fair and equitable sharing of benefits is also one of the major aims of the Nagoya Protocol. Nagoya Protocol or the CBD, that is the conservation to biological diversity. Then comes the status of biodiversity management in India. So what is the status in India with regard to the biodiversity? So it covers Earth's land area of 2.4%. So this is a fact. The species accounts for 7 to 8% of the world's 36 biodiversity hotspots. So in all over the globe, there are 36 biodiversity hotspots, and with regard to India, there are 4 biodiversity hotspots. That is the Sundaland, the Indo-Burma region, the Western Ghats and the Himalayas. And out of these two, the Indo-Burma region and the Sundaland is not only restricted to India with regards to its area, so it is with regard to Asia. It is spread in other countries also. Then comes the biodiversity governance in India. So India's Biodiversity Act 2002 shows close coordination with the Nagoya Protocol, because the main aim is with regard to the conservation of biodiversity and also the sharing of fair and equitable benefits with all. And the objective is to implement the provisions of the Convention on Biological Diversity, and it is hailed as an important step towards conserving India's vast biodiversity. Then next comes the Biodiversity Convention. So Biodiversity Convention is the Convention on Biological Diversity, popularly known as the CBD. So CBD was negotiated at the Earth Summit in the year 1992, and Earth Summit took place in the Rio de Janeiro. So this question can be asked, that CBD was negotiated at. So you should know that it was the Earth Summit in the year 1992. This can be asked. Then next comes the Bonn Climate Session. Then Bonn Climate Session is, recently the representatives of the Paris Agreement organized a session in Bonn, Germany. So Bonn is a small city in Germany, and Paris Agreement took place in the year 2016, and this is with regard to restricting the climate climate temperature to 1.5 degree Celsius and to fight against the climate change and restrict the increase of temperature to 1.5 degree Celsius, and if not 1.5 degree Celsius, then from 1.5 degree Celsius to 2 degree Celsius. So the major decisions were taken regarding the United Nations Climate Conference to be held in Dubai in the year 2023. So the COP28 took place in Dubai. Now the key points of the session, first of all, was it was about the global stock take. Stock take means taking the stock of something. Stock take. The technical discussion on global stock take provided a brief outline of the elements to be covered in a stock take exercise, and it is a process mandated by the 2016 Paris Agreement. So with regard to the global stock take process, it was given in the Paris Agreement. So what does it do? It evaluates measures to address the impacts of climate change and develops strategies to strengthen international efforts to close the funding gap. So global stock take, it means the taking of the stock of something, whatever is being done, how it will be done, whatever practices it will be following, and how much it has achieved till now. So taking the stock of that. Then ultimate reason for this is to deal with the climate change. According to the Paris Agreement, GST meeting should be held every 5 years. Every 5 years from the year 2023. So from the year 2023. So if we will make 2023, then after 5 years, so it will be taking place in the year 2027 or to 2028. And GST is, don't think it is the goods and services tax. It is the global stock take. Then let's talk about the COP, that is the Conference of Parties. So it is the highest decision making body of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So whatever decisions are being taken under the UNFCCC is taken with regard to the COP meeting. As it held every year, it means annual meeting takes place, and the first COP meeting was held in Berlin 1995. Then if no party offers to host the session, then the COP is held in Bonn, Germany, which is its secretariat. Usually almost every year some country or the other hosts the COP. So the tenure of the COP president is usually decided among the 5 UN regional groupings. The president of the COP is usually the country's environment minister, and the high delegates of every country takes part in the COP because it is the highest decision making body with regard to the climate change and also with regard to the environmental decisions, who is elected immediately after the opening of the COP session. Now next is the Global Environment Facility, popularly known as the GEF. So it was established a day before the Rio Earth Summit in the year 1992. So you can also say that GEF was also established with regard to the Global Earth Summit. It is a type of fund. Type of fund means it is with regard to finances. So it is a type of fund dedicated to combating biodiversity loss, climate change, pollution, and degradation of land and ocean health. So it means it will be providing finances to deal with all these things. It has a unique governance structure consisting of a legislative assembly. It has a legislative assembly, has a secretariat, 18 agencies, scientific and technical advisory panel, and an evaluation office. These things might not be asked, but you should know that it is a type of fund and was established at the Earth Summit. Then it provides financial support for 5 major international conferences. Financial support is the major word you should know, and also be very clear with regard to the 5 international conferences to which it provides the financial support, because these 5 conferences can be asked. First is the Minamata Convention. It is related to mercury. Second is the Stockholm Convention related to POPs, that is the persistent organic pollutants. Third is the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, that is UNCBD, with regard to the conservation of biodiversity. Fourth is the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, that is UNCCD. And fifth is the UNFCCC, that is the United Nations Framework Convention to Climate Change. So these are the 5 international conferences to which the GEF, that is the Global Environment Facility, provides financial support. Then 184 countries including India are its members. This is with regard to the GEF. So 184 countries including India. So India is a part of the GEF. Its secretariat is located in Washington DC, US. The World Bank serves as the trustee of the GEF. Very, very important fact for you to remember. You can say that the most important fact. First is it provides financial support. Second, who provided the financial support or who is the trustee? That is the World Bank. So World Bank manages the GEF Trust Fund. Now let's talk about the GEF Council, that is the Global Environment Facility Council. So the main governing body of the GEF is the GEF Council, and the council consists of 32 members which are appointed by the constituencies of the GEF member countries. So GEF member countries decides it. Then India, along with the Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, Nepal and Maldives, has formed a permanent constituency in the Executive Council of the GEF. So India has also formed a permanent constituency. The council meets twice a year. It means 1 year. It means it meets for 2 times. Twice a year. 2 times in a year. 6th anniversary of Minamata Convention. So the 6th anniversary of Minamata Convention took place, and it symbolized global efforts to combat the toxic effects of mercury, and Minamata is situated in Japan. So the United Nations Environment Program reflects on the ongoing campaign to eliminate the use of mercury in the small scale gold mining, where the use of mercury is very high, as the mercury causes lot of health problems and health hazards for the people who are working in the small scale gold mining industry. And despite its economic importance, this practice poses a serious threat to both the miners and the environment due to the hazardous properties of mercury. Now about the Minamata Convention. So it is a global treaty. It is a global treaty to protect human health and the environment from the adverse effect of mercury and its compounds. So it is not only restricted to mercury, its compounds are also involved in it. So it was agreed at the 5th session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee in Geneva, Switzerland in the year 2013. And the controlling the emissions of mercury is one of the key obligations of this convention. Now let's talk about the important factor, and that is about the mercury pollution, because this is which can be asked. What is important is Minamata Convention is related to mercury. Basic point is this. This is one word that you have to remember about mercury pollution. So mercury is a naturally occurring element in the earth's crust, and the World Health Organization has recognized it as one of the top 10 groups of chemicals affecting public health. So it affects public health, and World Health Organization has also put it among the top 10 groups. Now the major applications of mercury where it is used, very famous and the most famous, it is the use of thermometers. So mercury is present in thermometers and the barometers. It is used in various chemicals and mining processes, including chlorine production and gold mining. So electrical switches also you will find the use of mercury there. Now the major sources of mercury, various industries like the chlorine production, cement manufacturing and waste incineration emit mercury. Cement manufacturing and chlorine production are one of the areas where the production of mercury takes place at a very high pace. And then the improper disposal of mercury containing e-waste products like the bulbs, batteries. So mercury has a wide use because of its electrical properties. So because of its electrical properties, it is used in electrical appliances, it is used in thermometers, it is used in e-waste and etc. Now about the cottage and small scale gold mining. ASGM, cottage and small scale gold mining. It is a major source of mercury pollution where mercury is used to extract gold from ore. So to take out gold from its ore, mercury is used as a method. Now about its effects. It can accumulate in aquatic organisms such as fish. So fish and aquatic life can be disturbed through its accumulation, and this also increases the risk of Minamata disease. It affects the sensory system and can cause hearing and visual loss. So these are the health problems which can be caused. First of all, aquatic animals, then Minamata disease risk, sensory systems it can affect, then it can cause hearing and visual loss. And it was first observed in the residents of Minamata Bay in Japan. Then next comes the 20th conference of the parties to the UNFCCC, that is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It was held in Dubai, UAE. So this can be one of the most important topics with regard to the environment summit which has taken place. So that is took place in Dubai, UAE. Most important and basic facts. Major features of it was, first is the loss and damage fund. So COP28 member states, it reached an agreement to operate the loss and damage fund which aimed at providing compensation to countries facing the impacts of climate change, and the developed countries who have over a long period of time being the responsible countries because of whom the industrial revolution took place, and also the temperature over the years have increased, while on the other hand the other countries who have not contributed to the rise of temperature are also suffering, like the least developed countries or the island nation or the vulnerable countries. So the compensation needs to be provided. In line with the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement, the World Bank will be the interim host of the fund for 4 years. So the interim host will be the World Bank and the time period is for 4 years. All developing countries are eligible to apply and each country is invited to make a voluntary contribution. So it is not a compulsory contribution that every country has to make. It is a voluntary contribution, and which country, whoever country wants to make the contribution, that is with regard to them how much contribution they can make, but it is not compulsory, it is voluntary in nature. And a specific percentage of the fund has been earmarked for least developed countries and small island developing countries. So a specific amount will be given to the least developed country and the small island countries because they are the countries who are suffering the most. Now with regard to global stocktake, so it is a periodic review mechanism established under the Paris Agreement in the year 2015-16. Fifth edition of GST text released at COP28 adopted without objection. So the global stocktake to take the stock of everything with regard to climate change, whatever has been done and whatever will be done. The text has been adopted at COP28 without any objection. Then the text proposes 8 steps to keep global temperature rise within 1.5 degree Celsius, and it will be interesting to see whether this works or this does not work out. Then triple renewable energy capacity globally and double the global average annual rate of energy efficiency improvement by the year 2030. The target year also becomes important, and we see that 2030 is the target year which is the target year in many other conventions or summits or many other schemes also. So 2030 is a very important year with regard to many summits, convention, or any other kind of data. Then accelerating efforts towards phasing out unabated coal power, because that cannot be done on immediate basis. So phases needs to be prepared that how it will move out. Then accelerating efforts globally towards net zero emissions, and the net zero target for India is the year 2070. Net zero means whatever India is contributing with regard to the carbon emissions, it should also be able to take that back. It means that the footprint needs to be equal to the handprint. Using zero and low carbon fuels before or around the middle of the century, and accelerating zero and low emission technologies. So the low emission technologies needs to be worked. One of them can be the carbon sequestration, which can help in the reduction of the carbon, or to enhance efforts towards sustainable fossil fuel replacement in energy systems. So the fossil fuel replacement, so with regard to this, the solar energy, wind energy, hydro energy, the use needs to be increased. And accelerate and reduce non-CO2 emissions, especially methane emissions globally by 2030. Then India argues that it needs to continue using coal to meet its development needs and emphasize the importance of adhering to nationally determined contributions. So nationally determined contribution means that every country sets up their own national targets, that by this year every country, whatever the capacity they possess, they need to achieve those targets. So India also has their own NDCs. Then nearly 200 countries agreed to move away from fossil fuels in energy systems at COP28. So COP28 has been good with regard to countries coming together and taking steps towards the climate change. Then it aims to signal to policy makers and investors that the world is committed to transitioning away from the fossil fuel and move towards the sustainable future. Then many countries, including India, are opposed to any order to reduce methane emissions, as a major source of it is agriculture and livestock. So reducing methane emissions immediately, India was not in favor, because India depends a lot on it for its energy production, and also a source of it is agriculture, and one of the major source of it is agriculture and livestock, which plays and which holds a very significant portion in India. Then global renewable and energy efficiency pledge. So this pledge was taken. The signatories are committed to triple, that is 3 times, triple the world's installed renewable energy generation capacity to at least 11,000 gigawatt by the year 2030. So the target year is 2030, and renewable energy capacity needs to be increased, and within the renewable energy capacity, it is the solar energy which plays the dominant part. Then comes the wind energy, hydro energy, and etc. Double the global average annual rate of energy efficiency improvement from about 2% to more than 4%. And then global cooling pledge was also taken at COP28. It includes 66 national government signatories to work together to reduce cooling related emissions, that is with regard to HFCs and CFCs. So this was with regard to the COP28. Then we covered Minamata Convention. Then we also covered the GEF, that is the Global Environment Facility. Then we covered Bonn Climate Session, PBR and Biodiversity Management in India. Then United Nations Conference on Forest. Then it was Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanisms. Then comes the Petersburg Climate Dialogue 2023. Then the Convention on Migratory Species. Then the River Cities Alliance. So in the first episode, these are the topics that we have covered, and in the coming episodes we will be covering many more aspects with regard to the environment and geography. So That's all for today, and thank you so much for watching. Till we meet next time, keep reading, keep writing, and keep subscribing to the channel. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.